I'm Evan Knappen.
And I'm Teddy Knappen.
And welcome to Gun Lawyer. Well, just now, we just got word of the Supreme Court handing down the ruling in the Hamani case. And this is really quite a startling win, not necessarily because it was a win, but because it was a unanimous win. And what we have is the U.S. Supreme Court in a 9-0 opinion, essentially determining the unconstitutionality of marijuana creating a gun prohibitor under federal law. So for these years, you've had issues, and we've talked about it on the show, where folks that had, even a medical marijuana weed card, or they had any kind of history of prior possession conviction for misdemeanor marijuana, all that. It has caused just a lot of folks to not be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights. And we, in the past, actually coined the term from the show, bang or bong. You can't have both, because of how they being the government, how the government was interpreting this, to the degree where federal dealers were issued memoranda from ATF telling them that they could not sell to folks that admitted to using all this regarding marijuana, and laid out this as an enforceable prohibition. And by the way, this is also the thing that Hunter Biden was prosecuted for. Hunter Biden's gun case is essentially this issue as well. So we're happy to say, and not necessarily for any reason because of Hunter Biden, but because it is a win for the Second Amendment, that to see a unanimous decision. Let that sink in, folks. Every judge on the Supreme Court agreeing with an enforcement of the Second Amendment. Just that alone, regardless of the issue here, is really great to see. Just that. And here, there are interesting bedfellows, as they say, because we had the lawsuit challenge, et cetera. The legal action was joined the NRA and the ACLU on the same side. So we had both the NRA and the ACLU on the same side arguing for this to not prohibit individuals from Second Amendment rights. So this is very significant, and it's interesting because Judge Gorsuch delivered the opinion. Apparently, in the facts in this case, Hamani used marijuana a few times a week, and because of that, the government claimed that he's automatically banned from possessing a firearm under federal law. And because Hamani admitted that he owns a gun despite the ban, the government was now seeking to prosecute him, imprison him for up to 15 years, and disarm him for life. And this case here posed that question, whether the the government's prosecution of Hamani is consistent with the Second Amendment. And a unanimous decision found that it was not consistent with the Second Amendment. So, Teddy, what do you think about this?
Well, for me, when as soon as this case came out, I had to look, okay, what did Thomas say? Because he's the funniest of them all.
Well, that's true.
I had to go right to his opinion. And, of course, Justice Thomas being the greatest justice to have lived, and the fact that
Yes.
he is an originalist to perfection. Of course, he said we did not go far enough. And particularly,
Right.
and I love how he writes this, where I agree with the court that 922G3 violates the Second Amendment as applied to respondent Ali Khomeini, and I join in opinion full. I write separately to call attention to another issue as a matter of original meaning and court's precedent. It appears to exceed congressional enumerated power and regulate interstate commerce. He attacks the Commerce Clause throughout this, even highlights the fact that the government, if the firearms possession by the drug user had previously traveled through interstate commerce, the Commerce Clause does not authorize Congress to regulate or ban possession of any item that has ever been offered for sale or crossed state lines. He cites Alderman. His dissent is on the denial certiorari, where this conversion of congressional authority under the Commerce Clause to a general police power is retained by the states.
You see, this is really important, Teddy, because what he's doing there is he's going beyond, he's looking at the power grab, the overreach of the power of interstate commerce. And ever since the
Was it Wickard?
expansion of that, Wickard versus Filburn, ever since the expansion of that, it basically empowered the government, the federal government, to do anything it wants as long as they can make some tenuous argument that it somehow affects interstate commerce. And I'm really glad to see that he's out there, at least as a voice, trying to pull back that insane power grab that occurred back under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That's right.
As you're reading through his opinion too, he takes a bat directly to the congressional authority, like bashes the Commerce Clause directly of how is it that something how does that fall under interstate commerce when it's not traveling between the states? Like, he is going at it hard, outlining each bit case by case, showing the abuse by it. Even highlights how, I love this line, like the gun possession statute issues in Lopez, it is not a regulation of economic activity, but a law to combat, quote unquote, crime and violence, even at the local level. Literally, calls it out. How is this economic activity when you're just doing this for regulating crime?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a, in the decision, this is very interesting. They being the court, they outline their ruling and why, and I think you'll find it very interesting here where they talk about that Mr. Hamani, he admitted his use of marijuana, and he knowingly possessed the gun in his home, being a, quote, unlawful user of the substance. And if you look at that, that seems to fit exactly what the law is prohibiting, right? And what the actual holding of the Supreme Court held, that the government's prosecution of Hamani under 922 unlawful user provision is inconsistent with the Second Amendment. And here in the holding, it actually says, the Second Amendment protects the rights of all Americans, but they had that in quotes, to keep and bear firearms for self-defense. So there's even an affirmation of the right to self-defense, and they're citing Heller with that. Though, like most individual rights, it has its limits. To determine when the government infringes on the Second Amendment, the court begins by asking whether the amendment's terms cover the conduct in question. If so, the Constitution presumptively protects it, that's citing Bruin. To overcome the presumption, the government bears the burden. The government bears the burden of showing its regulatory efforts are consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. That is the test, and the burden is on the government to have to show it. The government need not point to a historical twin or precise historical precursor. That's from Rahimi. That's the Rahimi case. Instead, The appropriate analysis involves considering whether the challenged regulation is consistent with the principles that underpin our regulatory tradition. The government may reason by analogy, okay? And this is where the battle comes in our fight for our Second Amendment rights. Now, it says further, the government accepts this framework, and they proceeded to argue from it. And so this is very exciting in terms of the test being applied, the court looking at the government's argument of traditional habitual drunkards losing their rights, and the court, through the opinion, just absolutely distinguishes between this marijuana ban and historical precedent concerning habitual drunkards. And then they also put into play about the decision being narrow. And here's where, Teddy, what you just said about Justice Thomas, he wants it to be broad, but the decision itself says it's narrow. It does not address efforts to ban addicts or those presently intoxicated from possessing a firearm. And then it also talks about whether individuals convicted of felonies can bring, they can be prosecuted. So they tried to contain it narrowly, but if you step back and just look at the big picture in regards to a 9-0 opinion on a gun rights issue, that to me is probably the most outstanding thing about it, is that we got the whole court on board.
I will say, if you go to Jackson's quote-unquote concurrent opinion, she doesn't even talk about the case. She literally spends the entire thing bashing Bruen. I was reading through it. She literally just spends the entire thing in full credit, and she says, I write to emphasize my scrutiny. The court applies to we adopted Bruen, the quote-unquote history and tradition metric, which more rational way of assessing the constitutional regulations. Bruen is unworkable, and it creates such a vulnerability of inconsistent, arbitrary application. Oh, like most gun laws?
Yeah, well, keep in mind the politics here. She's purposely trying to attack Thomas over Bruen. And so this is, and what she can't stand is that she's ruling in favor of the Second Amendment, but in so doing, it means that Bruen is being empowered here, which it is, but she's like the computer on Star Trek, where she's going to explode that it's now affecting issue of marijuana, and the ACLU is on this side, and yet how could she actually use, Thomas's brilliance here, even though it's what she believes is the right thing to do, but can't give credit. So it's like, she's just exploding over it, but still has to side with the full unanimous majority. And that's why it is that astounding, because even a justice like her, who is so blatantly politically and hardly as viewed as educated jurist here by comparison to so many of the others on the court, this is what you see happen. So it's pretty good there that we're making the headway.
What she ends it with this, Dad. Just this. By the way,
right.
These people are Marxists. If they, whatever it is, it's just oppressor, oppressee. They see,
right.
And you're a gun, you're an oppressor. That is their view. Keep that in mind. We should consider, this is what she says, we should consider whether to retire the failed Bruen experiment and return to an explicit assessment of congressional ends and means when deciding constitutionality of firearm restrictions. Mind you, this is the same individual who in the very beginning of her argument says that the framework doesn't address the current modern difficulties had, and not addressing the real present stakes and problems facing in our society today. When justifying gun laws and the Second Amendment, you have to consider the gun violence and the victims of gun violence. Not looking to the law, obviously. Just go on vibes and feelings.
Actually like applying the Constitution. Instead, it's a living document, which it isn't.
No.
And start applying that whole.
Fine. Fine. No 19th Amendment. Got it. Like,
well,
it's so ridiculous. Right. It's so they only apply it when they choose.
Hey, but even with all that said, it still is 9-0 in favor of 2A. So for that, we can be happy to see. And of course, we're now waiting for Wolford. And that is a sensitive places decision, which should also be very interesting on how they rule on sensitive places.
Do you remember the commemorative for the Heller revolver they did?
Yes, I have one. Mm-hmm.
I want whoever's the top AR maker. I want them to do a commemorative to the case when we finally get the constitutionality on the assault weapon ban. And finally getting those removed. That would be awesome. Like, just seeing that. Who do you think would be a good maker?
Sure there'll be, I'm sure there'll be all kinds of, that's funny. You have that Smith & Wesson when Heller came out.
Yeah.
And Smith did a limited run of the 38 J-frame Smith & Wessons. And they're engraved on the side with the Heller decision and scales and all. And it's a pretty cool gun, and they came out with it pretty fast right after the Heller decision. But I got Dick Heller himself, the Heller of the Heller decision, to sign the gun. So I have a Heller commemorative Smith signed by Heller himself. Yeah. So that's a.
Don't you have one for McDonald too, as well? I could have sworn there was a.
I do. Yeah, well. McDonald, and but I also have a very collectible commemorative knife, Teddy. Mm. It's a full kitchen knife, and it's actually signed by Bobbitt. Remember the Bobbitt situation? Yeah. Well, I have a knife that is signed by John Bobbitt there, and what he wrote on the knife was, in addition to his name, he wrote, "Always sleep on your stomach."
I thought he would have
pretty good. Always sleep on your stomach.
I thought he wrote
signed by Bobbitt. So it's a big kitchen butcher style knife, a big chef's knife. And I said, "Boy, that is definitely a great collectible signed knife."
I wanted him to write, "Mr. Happy went missing."
Right, that's
from the Weird Al song.
Weird Al, Mr. Happy went missing. But he's signed, "Always sleep on your stomach." I'm like, okay, if anyone can give that advice, I guess it's him.
I know.
So
right?
Getting these things signed by, hey. Dick Heller signed the gun, and Bobbitt signed the knife, and forget it. I'm not going where I'm going with this. Not doing it. Not doing it. No. So, hey, by the way, Teddy, where's our favorite range that we shoot at? Come on.
Oh, of course. It's We Shoot, obviously.
That's right. We do. We go there, and we have a blast, and so will you. We Shoot is an indoor range right in Lakewood, New Jersey. It's conveniently right off the Parkway. Beautiful facility, top of the line, modern, great place, great training, great pro shop, great people. It's where we got our certifications for our carry, our C-Care certifications, and other training as well. So you need to check out We Shoot. We Shoot. It's at WeShootUSA.com. Their website is really great. They have beautiful photographs. They pride themselves on their photography. And you can make sure you also check out the We Shoot girls that always have fantastic firearms that they are displaying. And there are sales and specials and deals, and We Shoot is just great. So check out WeShootUSA.com. You'll be glad you did. It's a superb resource. We got to really use and protect our ranges, especially in New Jersey where it's so crowded and it's tough to find really great places to shoot. But We Shoot is there, filling an important need in protecting our rights. Because what good is having a gun if you can't shoot it, man? So check out WeShootUSA.com. Also, I want to shamelessly promote my book on New Jersey gun law, which, by the way, is called New Jersey Gun Law. And you can find it at evannappin.com. It's over 500 pages, 120 topics, all question and answer. It is the guidebook, the key resource to helping you not become a GoFu. And I've taken great pride in that. So I think you'll enjoy it. And those that have it know its value. It's designed as your easy-to-use reference to the insanity that is New Jersey gun law. Go to evannappin.com, and get your copy today. Hey, Teddy, I know that you have press checks, and I think there's a pretty fascinating press check story that you are going to share with us. What is this? Tell me.
Well, we got our first from, again, press checks are always free, from Not the Bee, from a guy Joel Abbott. So everyone's been seeing the World Cup. Like, I don't typically follow soccer or anything on that, but you see all the Europeans coming in, which I love that video of the Japanese tourist who brought trash bags and picked up their trash after.
They're very conscientious. That's very good.
I know, as opposed to the Knicks fans who decided to burn down a bus, but whatever. Hey,
listen, Mom would approve of the trash bag thing, you know that.
Oh, no, I know. Well, yeah.
Even just at our house, if we did that.
And the recycling, can't forget about that.
That too, yeah.
But one thing that seems to be catching on, because you have all the vloggers and people coming to want to experience America as they're going to see. Right. They've been going to gun ranges, to rent-a-gun places.
I know.
They're appreciating our Second Amendment, which...
It's actually spreading the understanding to these disarmed, oppressed peoples. And they're suddenly, particularly see, the UK folks, they're like, wait a minute, how did we lose this, right?
Yeah.
How did this happen?
And it's very interesting because it's almost like those videos you always see where it's the liberals going to the range and they actually like, oh my God,
right.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
You see all these people like, why? They're waiting for wait, you guys can just do this? And they're always shocked and awe from everything. But one in particular, this was a British guy, Spencer Tarring. He does videos, and we've been totally pacified in the UK through the removal of our arms, our right to bear arms. It's caused a big problem for us, and now our government is basically turning it into an absolute tyrannical feminine leadership that is gradually eroding our rights, and there's really not much we can do about it. Well, there's one thing you can do, but, just kind of look to the founding of our nation and then get some ideas. Or they could look to, or they could look to the risings in Scotland and try not to, not to put the Bonnie Prince on the throne. Didn't work.
And here, the British even went after an IT consultant.
Correct.
Because he posed with a gun in the U.S. and posted it on Linked.
Yep.
Just for posing with a shotgun, with an 870 shotgun.
Yep. 13 weeks of hell he went through for sharing a photo of something that wasn't even in the UK. This is why you don't get an inch.
This was pointed out by Not the Bee. So Not the Bee is a pretty cool aggregate on news sources. And this is Joel
And
Abbott.
frankly, far
Joel
funnier
Abbott, who
than the
wrote the
Onion.
article.
Far
Because not
funnier
to
than
be
the Onion.
is real stuff that you can't believe is actually true when it is, as opposed to the Babylon Bee, which is parody. Not to be has real stories in it that you think should be fake, but they're not. It's
Yep.
like unbelievable. So, but this one
Yeah.
here is not as outrageous, to be honest, because this is what makes it so great about having rights, and why we got to protect them. And we see what it's like for the folks that live in countries that they claim to make believe are free when they're not. I mean, we're still
Just-
fighting for freedom here, but I mean, to think that, claim England is free, UK is free,
I'll point
that's a
it
joke.
to you. I'll point it to you right
Yeah.
now. Like the two you always hype. I gotta highlight this to people all the time. Literally arresting a woman for thought crime.
Right.
Arresting a young girl fighting off a pedophile with an axe and a knife. Going after her. Also proven, by the way, that was another article that came out where he was in fact trying to go after minors, and he had 2 prior accounts. But let's just say the Labour Party didn't want to mention that part. And the final bit, and I saw this one, it was like for every officer, like they've arrested like done 20 arrests for hate speech online, whatever they make up. Like they are done. They are so gone.
It's a shame because the formerly Great Britain, but maybe this kind of experience of them seeing America and what it's about, not just from a slanted media, but from actually coming here and experiencing America. I mean, just in terms of brisket that they're going crazy for.
Also, just
American
going
food. Yeah.
even that, like just going into Europe. Anyone ever gone to Europe? You turn on the news. Imagine your only news station was CNN and MSNBC, and that's it.
God. Yeah.
That is all they have. They have the state-run everything news networks. There is no alternative voice. There's no alternative tech.
Wow.
They ban Rumble and other outlets so they can just control the media, and this is what it leads to, just the authoritarian states.
It's crazy. And so I was looking at this, and you also indicated to me about kind of a crazy international story, Teddy.
Yes, let's just
What
say,
the hell?
at times like this, you should buy a holster. This was out in Brazil, where a female suspect, when she was stopped by the military police from Goiás, carried out a intervention.
Now, this is in Brazil, right?
In Brazil.
In Brazil. And this is an actual story that is from a legitimate quote unquote news source, right? What's the source?
It's not. It's right from the Daily Star.
Okay.
And,
and they even have video of this,
footage.
and they're showing reports. So this is actually legit. This is not a parody
Yep.
or
So
a joke. Go ahead. What happened here with this?
The officers located the pair, carried out a stop and search, showed the armed passengers struggling to remove the firearm from inside her intimate area, specifically trying to pull out a loaded pistol from her vagina.
And
got
Teddy,
stuck.
this is not. They show the gun, and it's the actual firearm. And folks, this is the gun, and they even name the gun a Taurus 92. Okay, that is essentially the Beretta M9, but made by Taurus, the Taurus 92, right? Basically, that 15 to 17 shot, depending on the size of your mag, and that you don't live in Jersey. Full size 92, or also our military carry gun till the SIG replaced it, of the Beretta M9. That full size 9 she pulled out. How did she? Ouch. I don't even know how that happened.
I don't think Taurus and Victoria's Secret should have partnered up for the Victoria's Secret for the Victoria concealed.
And I think they mentioned that it got stuck. It was stuck.
Yes, it
For a
was
bit.
stuck in. Yes, it was stuck there.
It was stuck, and I can imagine why it was stuck, considering the size of a Taurus/Beretta 92,
Yeah.
and it was loaded as well.
What she should have done is got some REM oil, and that would have helped solve it.
Well, New Jersey has a requirement for holster to have to cover the trigger guard and the frame and all that, and technically, she might actually have been in compliance if she was under New Jersey gun law, given the requirements for a holster. I don't know.
Well, it has to cover
Definitely
the
an
majority.
odd
It has to
question.
cover the majority of the firearm and
The
can't
trigger
have-
and
the
right.
trigger. So
And so, I mean, this was pretty crazy.
yes,
Pretty crazy. But it makes sense in Brazil there would be a Taurus since they're made in Brazil. So those would be a Brazilian gun.
Well, I'll give Taurus credit for the guerrilla ad campaign that they.
Well, Taurus
He
makes
carried-
other guns like the Judge. The Judge.
Oh, yeah.
The,
Oh, yeah.
the Raging
Let's-
Bull. She didn't do a Raging Bull. At least she didn't do the Raging Bull. I mean, it's bad enough
you
was
think
the
it might
Taurus
have been-
92.
It might have been easier with a public defender, to be honest.
Right. That's what she's going to need now.
Yeah.
If they're putting a Taurus, being caught with a Taurus 92, they're carrying it illegally, no less inappropriately. She's now going to need a public defender to defend her possession of a Taurus.
And a gynecologist.
Maybe she could call the consulate. I don't know what's going to happen there. That's a crazy, crazy story. But hey, just think if she had a North American Arms mini revolver or something, but a Taurus 92. Oh, man.
I love the mindset of like, okay, this is a good idea, right?
That's right. This is a good idea.
just on the impracticality of like, okay, if I'm ever like, the deal goes bad and I need to draw this quickly.
I don't know where. And then if she was hiding it up there, why did she surrender it to the police when she was hiding it? If it was hidden, I mean, I don't know.
I think at that point
understand.
she was just looking for the excuse because it was probably
Maybe
very uncomfortable.
just had enough. Like, this just got to go. Here, take it. Take it. Oh boy. Well, Teddy, that is definitely something to consider in the news on carry news in terms of method. We have the GoFu, which is a gun owner F-up. Now, I think the last story might qualify as a GoFu, but we need to bring it down to a little bit more of a commonality of things that often happen and that we often see that are mistakes.
Too many times.
To be
honest.
one of the and one of the things we want to really be clear as to GoFu here is the warning shot. Okay, warning shots are basically mythology. You should not be firing warning shots because the firing of a gun is essentially what's construed as the use of deadly force. And if you're using deadly force, you got to be justified in using deadly force. So we do not in any way recommend the warning shot. And in New Jersey, the discharge of the firearm without lawful purpose itself is an automatic virtual per se felony, as Murphy's new law has declared it, essentially. So you have the discharge law, you have the issues of undercutting your own arguments for use of force. If it was a threat that was justified in using deadly force, why are you firing your firearm without using it to stop the deadly force, where you feel you can fire it as simply a warning? Is it that imminent danger, or is it not that imminent? There's just so many downsides and negatives to warning shots. Plus, where's the round going? And there are cases where, you hear, oh, well, it was a warning shot and that's why I hit them. And you're trying to excuse the either bad aim or whatever under some guise of warning shot. Not a good idea. So make sure you get your training. Make sure you learn the rules on the use of deadly force. It's critical that you do that. You can really get jammed up if you don't understand that dynamic. It's critical, and it is often not intuitive because of how bad these things are shown on television all the time. Television is not a good education source for learning when you can and can't use force. If we're talking about made-for-TV dramas and TV shows and movies and all that, not a good idea to learn your gun law from there. This is Evan Knappen and Teddy Knappen reminding you that gun laws don't protect honest citizens from criminals. They protect criminals from honest citizens.
Gun Lawyer is a Counterthink media production. The music used in this broadcast was managed by Cosmo Music, New York, New York. Reach us by emailing evan@gun.lawyer. The information and opinions in this broadcast do not constitute legal advice. Consult a licensed attorney in your state.